This is the Frontier Doubles League, a league unlike the typical threes leagues. We are a North American 2v2 Rocket League competitive league that has a scene for players of all ranks. So, what makes us different besides the fact that we're a 2v2 league instead of the typical 3v3? Well, we offer flexible scheduling, most matches are streamed with live commentary, we're a smaller, more personable community that scrims often. We truly are the most friendly league out there. So, whether you're trying to improve your skills or just want to have some fun, you'll find a place here. To sign up today, visit fdl.gg.
Welcome everybody to our new podcast, FDL Central for Frontier Doubles League. It's going to be your hub for all things FDL. We're going to go through matches from the previous week, have some analysis through all that. We'll look at some of the upcoming matchups and the storylines leading up to them. But it's obviously, me, Hawkish, is going to be your co-host, joined here by Rhinoboy. How you doing tonight, Rhino?
Good to see everybody in chat. Can't wait to get this going. Really excited for this new podcast. Can't wait.
Absolutely. I'm very excited. And also, our guest today is iMichael. Michael, how you doing tonight?
Doing great, man. Feeling really good about this podcast.
Absolutely. We're definitely going to have to edit out that beginning. We're just staring for a little bit. But yes, we're going to try to kick things off. Rhino, you want to talk about Origin this past week? It was a fun wild card round, or a quarterfinal, actually, I should say.
Really fun.
Anything that popped out to you?
I think the Coyotes going 4-0 over the Penguins has to be talked about. I mean, sweeps at this stage are pretty crazy. So, for the Coyotes to come in, Tucan playing as well as he did, and Scooteroo having a little bit of a rough start, I think was super interesting this weekend in the Origin League, and I can't wait to see how that develops.
Absolutely. I know going back last week, I don't think a lot of people were expecting a sweep from the Coyotes. It was very interesting to see a team that had played so well throughout the season, just kind of maybe lost some steam at the end. You did mention Scooteroo as he is one of the better Origin players. So it was a little curious to see a little bit of a rough start for him. What do you think, Rhino?
Yeah, it is, and part of me would like to bring in Michael as our guest here, because I have talked about Scooteroo on the Penguins, and I guess I have a overarching question about him, which is he has been given the tag as one of the best players in Origin, and this weekend he just didn't quite live up to those expectations. But obviously he's young, he's full of skill and potential. So what's the advice that we people in the league should be giving him to just be like, look, it's just a playoffs game, people get nervous, we move on to the next season and look ahead? What advice would you give to him?
I'm gonna throw that, actually, to Michael. What kind of? I know you're a captain for your Rams team. If you're one of your players is struggling like that, what do you think normally the kind of things you need to say to them to try to keep them on track?
Biggest things, man, is keep your head up. Just keep your head up. Just keep your head up. You can't let that head fall too far down when you lose a game in a sweep like that, especially in playoffs. You just got to keep your head up and keep a watch. You just got to keep on grinding those hours out.
I tend to agree. I know for my team, a lot of times, we do tend to get in our own head. If we're struggling, or if things just don't go your way. I've been a part of some playoff losses myself. So I think the biggest thing is to not let it get to you. At the end of the day, it's a game, and you want to try to get better. So you got to try to focus on next season and improving your play. I do remember the biggest thing to note with the Coyotes and Penguins game is Toucan performed, and so did Senpai.
Oh, Toucan went absolutely off in this game. I mean, you just have to look down his stats to prove that. 656.75 score per game, 63.26% goals per shot, which is outstanding at Origin level, averaging 3 goals per game. I mean, this guy looked pretty much unplayable, and I guess we have to look ahead now to campaign this weekend and see if he can keep it up.
Yeah, absolutely. But you got to remember, Rhino, it wasn't the only game played last week. We also had the Vipers and the Dragons.
Very true. Very
That
true.
was a little sad for me to watch, to say the least. I was really rooting for my boys. We clawed back from 0-5 to start the season to sneak into the playoffs. So to miss out in the first, in the first round, basically, it was a little rough for me to take.
Yeah, I bet it was. I mean, just watching this game, you could see that the Dragons went 2-0 up in the game. They were leading the series. They looked really, really good. And I mean, the Vipers were 7-3 in the regular season, and your boys were 5-5. So to go 2-0 up must have been super exciting, but to have it pulled away from you by the Vipers, I mean, they played outstanding though. You have to give them that.
Yeah, I think the Vipers ended up figuring things out. I know that some of the pressure was starting to get to the Dragons. We fought our way to get there. They started going up 2-0, and mistakes started happening. And eventually, tilt occurs. You got to try to calm down, and it doesn't always work out the way you intended. Michael, I know you casted the game. Were there any things that you noticed pointing out between that matchup that maybe led to the Vipers taking that one?
You know, I said this while I was casting, man, just the Vipers defense. They were anytime the ball coming to their half, they were trying to get it out. And if a shot was put on, they didn't double commit. They just they played a really solid defense that series.
Yeah, and
Yeah, I do tend to agree with that. Because I think at the end of the day, the Vipers did figure out Dragons, at least the Origin Dragons, are all offense, not a lot of defense. So if you can play a good counter game, that kind of is the strat against that lineup. So I give props to the Vipers. Sticks and Rico played a really solid game, and the fact that they were able to persevere, being down 2-0, not a lot of teams can take that and then just come back and win 4 straight.
no, they absolutely can't. And you said it right there, right? Dragons was basically all offense, but you even look at one of the individuals, right? Rico stats, who had an incredible game, 19 shots across the series and 15 saves. He's doing it at both, the attacking end and the defending end. Which I guess would you say that was the big difference between the two teams?
Yeah, I think it was just the Vipers were a very strong defensive team, something that the casters were talking about a lot. They were Rico. I remember from last season when he played with Pro, who happens to be on my team now. He basically did a lot of the defensive work. He, let Pro do his thing, and then Rico kind of just covers for any sort of whiffs or mistakes being made by Pro. So absolutely, he continued that this season, and the difference was, and instead of having an offensive player matched up with a defensive player, Sticks, I've also heard, has a defensive reputation himself. So they went for a really defensive lineup, which will win you a lot of games because a lot of times you just have to play solid defense, rotate, and wait for the offense to make mistakes, especially at Origin level where a lot of mistakes tend to happen.
We often talk about defense winning championships, and I've got one more question in this about this game, and I'm going to send it over to Michael. Looking forward to this weekend. Looking forward to the playoffs, the semi-finals. The Vipers, obviously their offense was great, but they actually only had a shot to goal percentage of just under 40. Do you think that's going to be good enough for them to really make a championship run in this playoff season?
Honestly, I think so because their defense is so good. Their defense is so good. I think they pick up that missing percentage in the defensive half. So to answer, yes, I do think they can do it.
Yeah, I do think I'm gonna have to side with Michael on that one. I do think that they do have a solid chance. It's gonna be a tough one though because you still got the Eagles, but we'll talk about that when you get to the preview. Next up, let's talk about Expert from last week.
Yes,
You
please.
got we're gonna start with the Owls, doing their sweep of their own. Uh, Brother leading his team to a very just dominant victory over the Coyotes, who some of the pundits favored him.
Yeah, I think pretty much most did. I was lucky enough to be able to cast this game, and I went in maybe naively assuming that the Coyotes were going to be able to put up a really strong performance against this Owls side, who only went 5-5 in the regular season. But the Owls showed us that they've got loads more than meets the eye. Duolingo went off, and Asiago also had a great game. So I mean, yeah, it's just one of those things that the Owls showed up and the Coyotes didn't, and you know.
Yeah, I know myself. I was never very like nothing against the players themselves, of course, but I was never personally very high in the Coyotes. I routinely had them ranked lower than a lot of the other guys did in the power rankings. But I think the biggest issue that I was seeing just from looking at if you just look at the box score is Kasekage just had a bad series versus how he played during the regular season. Nearly half of his regular production, and he just wasn't good enough when you see Brothers playing the way he's playing and Asiago supporting him very well. And at the end of the day, you needed both Coyotes to play well, and it just didn't happen.
Yeah, absolutely agree. I mean, when you're dropping a 262 average score versus the 540 that he was known for in the regular season, Kazakage definitely had a bit of an off game. I think it's fair to say an off series.
Yeah.
But you know what? It's playoffs. It's playoffs, and pressure can get to anyone at this stage. So I think that's another situation we were talking about Scooteroo earlier. Just dust yourself down, go again next season. Let's switch sides though for a minute, and let's try and talk about Duolingo, who had one of his performances of the season, coming out with some absolutely insane stats. He had the highest average score per game of any player over last weekend's wildcard week, 738 average score per game. Michael, if you're playing the Owls next, you see they went 5-5 in the league, but they're putting up numbers like that. Does that scare you as a team?
As a team, if I was going against them this week, yes, I would be. I would be afraid because you now see what's coming. You can see like, oh, he's coming in ready. He's not just coming in, cold, hasn't played for a couple days. He's coming in ready and ready to destroy. So yes, I would be scared.
Yeah, you got at the end of the day, you can't really discount an opponent no matter who you're playing, because it's especially if you've seen it a lot in FDL, upsets happen. A lot of times that the moment that you get complacent and think you have it in the bag, it's the moment that you lose. Because you're not expecting touches from that team. You're not expecting them to go for certain balls or get certain shots that normally you might be more hesitant to let them have if you expected a little bit of fear in their play. But at the end of the day, you just got to play them like they're going to hit those plays and wait and react instead of just preemptively not go for stuff thinking that you have it easy, so to speak.
Yep, absolutely, 100% agree. But again, the Expert League also had 2 games over last weekend, and the other side of the bracket was the Monkeys taking on the Unicorns. How did this one go down, Hawkish?
Well, I know the Unicorns, I think personally, they surprised me. So they won 4-1 uh in that series, and that wasn't something I was expecting from them. In all honesty, I thought Frank Carnival and Rhythm, the combination, they played so well during the regular season that I thought they were going to really pop off. And you got to give credit to the Unicorns. They're a team that maybe gets looked past a lot. They're not considered. They weren't considered for a while one of the top 3 to 4 teams. They're routinely around the 5th spot throughout the season. So the fact that they were able to take it to the Monkeys, who again routinely were rated above them, was really impressive. KC, great game and great series. Cody, that man's scary. I can tell you that myself. He's the only one to give my Dragon team a loss this season, and that was a game that Cody played in. So
Mhm.
real strong.
He absolutely showed up in this game. I do want to quickly put a spotlight on one of the monkeys. Frank was playing in this game. We know his salary is significantly lower than a lot of the same people in the expert league. He's down at 13.3, but he still had an absolutely incredible performance. And I've got to ask, to people who are at the top of teams, is when you see someone on that low salary having that good a game, is that something that you're looking at as like, oh, maybe we could bring him in next season and have him as like a low value filler in our team?
Michael, you want to take this one?
Sure. Uh, to be completely honest with you, if I see him perform, you know, he did really well in playoffs for his salary, like you said. And yes, that is a player I would be looking at going into next season if I would be an expert next season. But as a GM, I would be like, I want this guy. Like I would be hitting him up right now, be like, hey, will you be on my team next season in expert? Like that would be me.
I
Yeah,
agree. He had a great game.
yeah, I do have to say it's definitely one of those guys you got to put on your list. Everybody, every GM, I'm a GM myself, has that list of players that like I'm interested in. I want to bring them in for our tryouts, see how they fit with the boys that you currently have slated to play next season. Because and remember, FDL is not a draft league. A lot of the teams are kind of set for the most part. You're really adding, unless you got a lot of promotions, you're really adding one or two players at most, and sometimes you're just looking for a reserve. So unless you did very badly the previous season, and even then, you're not really looking at a ton of people. But he is definitely one of those guys that you're trying, especially if you have promotions, that you might be looking at. Hey, we don't want to be caught in a position next season where we don't have a replacement for a low salary guy as people are moving up. You always want guys to improve, and we're gonna have to see if Frank goes up in salary because clearly he is better than a 13-3. I think that was blatantly obvious in this season and the playoffs. It's whether or not he's gonna grind the rank to go up, and it's gonna be very interesting to see where he lands next season as there is a rumor of the monkeys falling apart roster wise. As you saw, their captain did not play in the playoffs. He has been a little bit MIA for personal reasons, nothing that we need to really delve into. But at the end of the day, it might not be the same team next season.
No, and I think that's really interesting to note is like if the team does collapse, if there's problems, then not only is Frank performing in playoffs, he's available for teams to pick up in that instance. He might get taken on by whoever takes over the monkeys, but there's definitely a chance that he is gonna move teams, and if that's the case, then I would hope that a lot of GMs are seriously looking to consider him.
But at the end of the day, yeah, I do agree with you there. But that's next season. Right now, we're talking about this season, and it was a very interesting one. You know, we did the inaugural by committee power rankings this season,
Mhm.
and it was very interesting to see how things changed. Michael, you're on the committee. Let's start with Origin. Were you surprised with how some of these teams played versus how they were ranked in the preseason?
Yes, I was. Like, one second here. Let me look at it real quick in Origin.
Mm.
A lot of these I don't know, man. It's like a lot of these Origins players at the beginning of the season were really underrated, and then they just mid-season just caught like a pop off, and they were just doing really good for the rest of the season. I love to see that.
Yeah, I know for me, my biggest surprise was how badly the Unicorns finished versus they were the number one team in preseason. Everybody thought they were going to be solid. Come playoff time, though, they were the odd team out. So for me, that was a team that surprised me. And then on the other side of the coin, the Monkeys. I don't think anybody expected them to be as good as they were, and they ended up being the number one team at the end of at the end of the rankings when they started at 7. So that was a team that really surprised me. Rhino, any big? I know you've been casting only for recently, but any teams that you were like, wow, they look really good.
Looking really good. I mean, you can't you can't overlook the Eagles either. The Eagles moving all the way up from 8th to 2nd is an incredible achievement for them.
Yeah, and be
Obviously,
goated.
the Unicorns jumping over them, but absolutely crazy to see those guys playing really well and looking to kick on in the playoffs. I'm really excited to see what they do. But
Yeah.
on the other side of the coin, you've also got the Owls and the Rams dropping down quite a few places. I think 7 and 8 in postseason, but they were 2 and 3 preseason. So cool to see. Cool to see how it changes. Cool to see how it moves.
Yeah, I do know with the Eagles, I always knew they were going to be pretty decent because Southpaw, I was his teammate last season. He is a great player and a great support. So he just needed to find someone that could take on that very aggressive role, that's a mechanical role really. And Ant's one of those kind of players. So they're my favorite to win it all this playoff season. And then the Rams, I know that the biggest thing with the Rams was they had a complete roster revamp from preseason to midseason. A lot of players left, so that was and we never really saw the team that we were expecting out of them, which was a bit of a disappointment. But things happen. But yeah, very interesting to see the differences that happened this season. Moving on to expert though, that's more mine and Michael's domain. Michael, preseason to current season. Who is your surprise and who is your disappointment?
The surprise for me, man, it honestly has to go to, you guys, the Dragons. Even though y'all were still number 4, that's kind of low for what y'all are now, which being number 1. And my disappointment has to be the Gators. I really thought that team was going to come out the gate swinging this season. And then, some stuff happened and it just, I hate to see what happened to them. What about you?
First, R.I.P. and F in the chat for Robot Man, our lovely streamer, who is the GM and captain of the Gators and the expert team. Yeah, it was a rough hand he was handed once players decided to dip on the team. Those are the kind of things that can ruin a season. So my biggest surprise on the positive side of things, I believe, were the Owls. I really did not think they were going to be good. I'm not going to lie. Like, I love every single one of their players. Like, they're guys that I'm friends with and I think are really solid on their own. But to start the season, the way they were set up, I just did not think they were going to have a solid season. Credit to Street, realizing even as a captain, he benched himself and realized that the better team build was not going to include him. And that's a tough pill to swallow as a captain, to be able to make those moves for the betterment of your franchise, to make sure that your expert team is still successful. And so far, that has paid off. My biggest disappointment, though, the Seagulls.
Yeah.
Wow, really?
I was just about to touch up on that. Man, I'm telling you, the power rankings do not show how much the Seagulls were talked about in preseason, in expert. They were like, dude, these two guys, they went to playoffs last season. They're going to come out just be a really dominant team. And man, that was honestly, that was another huge upset for me, honestly.
Yeah, so they're my biggest disappointment. And yeah, Rhino, it doesn't seem like it from where they ended, from where they were placed. But they were a team that a lot of people picked as their dark horse. That they were a team that could make a very quick climb.
Right.
But we weren't sure how their third was going to play. We knew the top lineup was going to be solid.
Mhm.
And that was a lineup that was one of the scariest in the entire league. All of us, like my team included, I know the Rams respected them as well, and other teams. Seagulls, Zana and Bondo, preseason, 2 14-6s or higher. That was a lineup that we were like, if that works, that's scary.
Yeah.
When they're on, it's rough for everybody else. But some things happened. Their third, well, he's not bad in jalapeno. It just didn't work. At the end of the day, it just didn't work. And they had a rough season, and where found themselves yet again on the outside looking in.
That's a
Rhino,
shame.
any team you liked as you were streaming or casting, I should say, the last few weeks?
Looking at the expert, we've already touched on it. The Owls were my team to watch. Really, I think they've performed really well this year, especially coming into this postseason. as potential underdogs. I think they proved everyone wrong, and I absolutely loved watching them, loved streaming them. I think they were great to watch. We do have to move on now onto
Yeah.
the Star League. Let's have a look at those power rankings. And I mean, 8 teams, obviously. Let's have a look. The Eagles staying in the same position from start to finish. Did we expect that? I think so.
Yeah, with Star, I think my biggest surprise was the Gators. They did not look good midway through the season, Michael. I think you can attest to that. They looked rough. Star was interesting to watch. My biggest disappointment has to be the Rams. I thought they were going to be one of the best 2 teams in the period, and they had some of the best lineups, and towards the end, they just kind of lost their steam and found themselves out of the playoffs. Michael?
On the positive side of things, honestly, Vipers, like, they were placed number 6 preseason, and now they're number 2 in week 10. I mean, they they just popped off, and I gotta say the biggest upset for me, Hawkish, has to be the Unicorns, man. Because as you know, that's got OG Myth or OGSR, Mythonian, and External Jinx, I believe. Everybody thought that was gonna be a really dominant team in Star, and it just wasn't. Like, I think they only won 1 game, I believe.
Yeah, it was a really rough season for the Unicorns, and I don't think
Yeah.
anybody was expecting that. Rhino, how about you?
Yeah. I think the Vipers have already been said, and I think that's really cool. I can't wait to see them play this weekend in playoffs. I think they're a super exciting team to watch and should provide good entertainment. I think the other teams to keep an eye on is the Monkeys. I think staying 4th from preseason to postseason. I think it's worth pointing out. Although yes, they have a very difficult game this weekend.
Yeah.
I think they could be a really interesting team to watch. They've had a half decent season, and
Half decent indeed.
let's see how they get on this weekend.
Yeah, but now moving on to Elite. Our top league, the top dogs, so to speak, preseason looked pretty different to how it ended. For me, one of my biggest surprises, I guess I would say, on the positive side of things, was just how dominant I would say the Eagles were. That was a team that I always believed in, and I always thought they were going to be really good,
Yeah.
but not as good as they looked. It was one of those where like, yeah, they're really good. They're really good. They're really good. I was up Chris's butt in the power rankings saying, push up the Eagles, push up the Eagles. And they went undefeated. That's such a big move. I know we struggled and we couldn't finish out the undefeated season. My biggest disappointment though, it's gonna have to be the Unicorns. I thought they'd be better, honestly. They had a rough season themselves, and it was really rough to watch. Michael?
For me, on the positive side of things, honestly, man, it has to go. They dropped a little bit but it has to go to the Owls. They stuck in there. They were there. Biggest upset though, this might be surprising, is gonna have to be the Penguins for me, man, because I know Suave and Hellcat. Hawkish, I know you know Suave and Hellcat. I was honestly expecting them to come out just, probably top 4 at least, but it just very unfortunate that didn't happen for them. But yeah, that has to be my biggest upset.
Rhino?
Yeah, absolutely. I think looking at them going into the league, it was certainly interesting. I mean, the crazy thing about the teams at this level is most people are kind of sticking around the same places. The Monkeys stayed, the Rams stayed in position, and the top teams kind of fought between themselves, and the bottom teams kind of fought between themselves, which is really interesting. Obviously, we've already discuss some of the movements, but I mean the Owls also, dropping down into 3rd in the power rankings from where we thought they were going to be at the start of the season. That's a bit rough for them, but also they still made playoffs, so you never know what they can pull off in the postseason.
Absolutely. And I wish we had more time for that, but we need to preview
We do.
these playoffs.
Very excited about this.
We're gonna start off with Origin. So to recap, Coyotes swept the Penguins. Vipers, unfortunately for me, beat my baby Dragons in Origin, and so we have the matchup of Monkeys and Coyotes versus Vipers and Eagles. So to start off, we got the Vipers and the Eagles, who both finished 7-3. They looked Coyotes versus. Do we have those matchups correct? I think so,
Yeah,
right?
they're on screen.
Okay. I just double checking.
All good.
But yeah. So we did mention seemingly even 7-3 Vipers, 7-3 Eagles, but the styles I think is the biggest storyline here. They're completely different from each other.
Oh yeah, absolutely massively, and it's going to be really interesting to see how that clash of styles plays out in this particular game. You also have to remember that like the Eagles, although yes they ended on the same win loss, they actually did have slightly more impressive stats. But I did want to ask Michael, just is this one of the most even games of the postseason?
Possibly, yes, because I mean, you have a super aggressive team and a super defensive team, and that kind of like evens itself out. You know what I mean? Like they're both playing to their advantage there.
Yeah, it's gonna be very interesting to see how it happens. Ant's such a strong player, so Southpaw. Viper's such a strong defensive team. So we're gonna go down the list. Start with Michael. What is your predictions for that series?
For the Vipers versus Eagles series, man, I love Sticks and Rico, and I love Southpaw, but honestly, I'm gonna have to go with the Eagles on this one. Like just because how dominant they are, if they just pin you down and take your boost, like they know how to do that. That's what they're good at, and I think the Vipers' defense is gonna crumble under that pressure.
Very interesting take, Rhino. How about you? What is your prediction?
I'm actually going to go the other way. I think the Vipers are going to take this one. I really do. I think watching them play last week against the Dragons, they showed me that they have the mental side of the game as well, coming back from 2-0 down, right, to win 4-2. I think that was great for them, and I think it just adds to their momentum. I think they're going to have gone in this week thinking they have a really good shot at the championship, and I think the Eagles are a great team, and I have no doubt that their defense is going to be super strong. But I just think the Vipers are going to find a way through.
Uh,
Hawkish, what are you saying?
for me, I think it's gonna be a close one, but I'm gonna go with the Eagles. I have this feeling that playoff softball, he's a different breed. I just really I really think that after the disappointment of last season, Southpaw is gonna come out firing, and Ant, you already know he's solid. You already know Ant's solid. Southpaw is gonna be the key factor here of whether or not the Eagles make it to the championship matchup. But I'm gonna give it to them. I believe it's gonna be a 7-game series. Honestly,
I
four
think
to
so.
I would
three.
have to agree. I would have
Go
to
4-3
agree.
on that one. Sorry. Moving on to the Coyotes versus the Monkeys. Monkeys coming in 8-2. Coyotes 6-4. We're gonna start off these two. They split the season series when they met. The last time that they played the Coyotes came out in a 5 games winner. But the lineups were completely different from week 1 to the final week.
Yeah.
So it's going to be very interesting to see with this new lineup, and maybe that gives them an advantage that the Monkeys just haven't seen them as well or as often as some of the other teams. We'll start with you, Michael. What is your predictions for this one?
Honestly, Toucan is gonna really dislike this, but this Alpha Vinny guy is just he's fast and he's consistent at being that fast. And I think the Monkeys are gonna take this. Hopefully we see a game 6 or 7 in there, but I gotta go with the Monkeys.
Rhino?
Yeah, I mean it's hard. It's hard to go against the 8-2 Monkeys. There is a part of me which, after watching Toucan's performance last week and how he dealt with Scooteroo, to say that they might be able to pull it out. I do think they'll at least win 2 games. That's going to be my kind of bold prediction. I think the Coyotes will win at least 2 of the games, but the Monkeys take this one for me. Hawkish, what do you think?
I'm gonna have to side with the Monkeys in this one. As much as I love Toucan, he's solid. I saw Alpha Vinny play in an expert match and hold his own mechanically, not just being able to keep up. Mechanically, he did not seem out of place for the most part,
Wow.
and was able to play very well. So I just think the Monkeys they have a gem on their hands, and it's gonna come down to again the secondary players. I believe Senpai probably is going to go in for the Coyotes, and I want to say it's Barnesy for the Monkeys. You have correct me if either of you know who it is. But I want to say it's Barnesy. So it's going to be very interesting to see which of those two guys come out and shine, because the top players are going to play well. It's the sidekicks, so to speak, in these matchups. Are they going to be able to play well enough to keep their teams ahead? But I'm going to give it to the Monkeys.
Yeah.
I think this one's going to be 4-2. I think the Coyotes take some games because Toucan's Toucan, but I think the Monkeys end up taking 4-2 in this one, and it'll end up being a Eagles-Monkeys finals matchup.
Ooh, I'm still going to stick with the Vipers, even though I know it's a bit close. Right, let's move on to
Maleficent, sorry.
the expert league playoff bracket, and let's first talk about the surprise, I guess, of the playoffs. The Owls coming in 5-5 against the Dragons, coming in 9-1. Obviously, we know the Owls swept the Coyotes, even though the Coyotes were 7-3 in the regular season. I've just got to straight up ask Michael though: is this too tall a task for them?
For the Owls?
For the Owls, yeah.
Honestly, I'm just gonna be. I gotta be honest with you guys. I feel like the Dragons will take it. The Dragons are just gonna take that match. I know Street's not gonna be happy about that, but
I already see him in the chat.
it's just
Yeah.
yeah.
Watching it
It's
go.
just you have the amazing combo of Pro and Rhine against a very solid player, Brother, and another very solid player, Asiago. But Pro and Ryan are just on that other level, man, and they're gonna take it. Dragons will take it.
Okay. Hawkish, what's your take?
Well, considering this is my squad,
I shouldn't leave them out. I shouldn't have. I shouldn't have asked.
Whoa!
these are my boys. I'm rocking the jersey right now. I'm gonna have to give it to my boys. I do know that Areen does not know how to sweep, so they're not going to sweep them. But I think it's going to be I think it's going to be 4-2. I think that I think the Owls are going to give them some stress early as they adjust. But I think eventually, once they figure it out, they're just going to go on a run. So it might start off like say 2-2, and it's going to look really close, and then the Dragons will take the next two. It's gonna kind of my prediction for this one.
Okay.
I just don't think that the Owls can do it. Pro, he is grinding. That man is already at star salary. He is like up at almost at 1,600. And then you see Reen when he wants to, when he grinds the game, he's right up there around 1,500. It's really going to come down to him. He is the secondary player in this one, and it's going to come down to see if he can play better than Asiago, which I think he can. And they have to take this seriously, though. I think the Owls are the scariest team in the playoffs for them, outside of maybe Michael and the Rams. Give you props there. So they have to take him seriously. But I think at the end they're going to take it. Rhino?
I totally agree. Although the only owl I want to put amongst the Dragons, I will say, is in every game they played in the regular season. As you say, the Dragons couldn't sweep. They can't sweep, and in a best of 5, that's one thing. But
Hey, we did sweep a few times.
So one time.
Yeah, but you didn't sweep
no-
the Owls. Sorry, you didn't sweep
Yeah,
the
yeah,
Owls.
I was gonna say, I was like, we did sweep a few times. We actually swept the last week, but
That's my caveat. You didn't sweep the Owls. The Owls always at least won one game against the Dragons. And that's the only thing I want to put in people's minds is like if the Owls can get either a 1-0 or a 2-0 lead, there may seriously be some danger for the Dragons because they haven't been in that position too much. But I'm going to stick with the Dragons. I think their regular season form has looked far too good to even consider the upset here. As much as I love the Owls and watching them play. Moving on to the next game in Expert League. Looking at the top of the bracket, it's the Rams taking on the Unicorns. Unicorns ending 6-4 in the regular season, whereas the Rams finished 9-1, the same as your own Dragons, Hawkish. Michael, how do you see this one going?
You know, I've been trying to deny it all season, and I think it's time I'll be honest with myself. You know, my team has changed a lot from when the season started, and I think the Unicorns take it. You know,
Wow,
that's not me saying I'm just gonna let them have the win, but be quite honest with you, I think they'll take it.
wow, that is
wow,
that is
wow.
not what I expected from Michael. Hawkish. What's your reaction, and does that change your opinion of the game?
I don't. I've never seen Michael being that humble.
And that's not a put on of being humble. Like that's me honestly saying, like, you know, they're the better people. They've played more with their teammates, and I just haven't put in the time with my teammates this season. And you know, I think they're gonna take it from us.
I will say, if this was the Rams team that came into the season together, yeah, there's no doubt. I think it'd be the
Oh,
Rams
yeah.
in a sweep, honestly. Because Casey and Cody are really good. They're not better than the Rams, at least in my mind. It's gonna come. I think it's gonna come down to Casey, honestly, and Cody is gonna need to peak. But I think this is gonna be another 7-game series, simply because the Rams are the better team. I think here skill wise, but the Unicorns have the better chemistry than them. So it's gonna come down to really, I think Casey. I'm just gonna put it on him. He needs to show up for his team if they're gonna have another chance, and if they do, Unicorns, they're the defending champs. They want to defend that championship, so
Yeah,
that's going to be very interesting. But I think it's going to be a 7-game series there. I'm still going to give it to Michael. I think Michael's going to pull something out of his rear end, and he's going to figure it out, and he'll make it to the final. I don't think he throws here. Rhino.
interesting. Very interesting. What Michael said there has put my mind in a little bit of doubt. I mean, this game is also really special to remember because it's the only game in this postseason where both teams are their franchise's only chance for a championship. Right? The Rams and the Unicorns are not in any other playoff bracket in across all 4 of our leagues. So, not to put any pressure on you, Michael, but you know, if you guys come up a bit short, then you know the franchise has had a pretty rough season. But I don't think you will. I think even after you saying that, you know, and the Unicorns look great. I mean, Cody had a star-making performance over the weekend. He was absolutely incredible. But for me, I think the Rams just have a bit too much for them, and I think they're going to take this one and go on to face what I would expect to be the Rams Dragons in the final of the championship. But we will see. We will
We
see if
will.
that comes into fruition.
All right, moving on to Star. We're gonna start off. They're one of the no quarterfinal conferences, so we haven't seen any playoff games in them yet. So we're gonna start off with the Eagles and the Monkeys. On paper, the Eagles look like the dominant team here. Monkeys being the lowest seed, barely squeaking in. Michael, what do you think is gonna happen here?
It's wait, you're talking about the Vipers versus Gators, right?
No. Monkeys,
Oh,
Eagles.
Monkeys versus Eagles. Oh, honestly, I'm gonna have to give this one to the Eagles. The Eagles. I mean, I think
The
they
way
take
you
it.
just said "oh," the way you just said "oh"
I just don't
tells us
like-
everything.
But Eagles versus Monkeys match. I gotta give it to the Eagles, honestly.
All right, Rhino, what do you think?
Yeah, this one seems pretty cut and dry to me. I mean, you need to consider that the Monkeys beat out 2 other teams into this playoffs on the same 5-5 score, but they still only had a win difference of 3 across the league. 3 games. That was all. That was all it was. So to me, I don't think the Monkeys can take this one. I think it's going to be the Eagles going on to the championship match. Hawkish, what are you saying?
Ironically, I'm gonna go the other way.
No.
I think the Monkeys take this.
Gotta be the black sheep.
Here's the thing. Here's the thing. Monkeys, they made a roster change mid-season. They brought in a player. That is I think the reason they found themselves sneaking into the playoffs, because they won a few in a row that they weren't supposed to win against some really solid teams, and that is Alex. He was a mid-season pickup for the Monkeys. I forget who he replaced, but I do think it's going to be a tough series. It might be one of those other 7-game series, but I think if they play the correct lineup that plays the best together, which does include Alex in that lineup, I do think they take this. It's going to be tough. It's going to be tough. Eagles are solid.
That's a big call. That's a big.
But I'm a die on this hill. I think the Monkeys take this one.
I think you genuinely might. We'll find out.
All right, moving on though. Gators Vipers. This is an interesting one. Gators, they looked like they were dead in the water mid-season. They looked awful. They started off, I think, 0-4. And they clawed their way to 6-4 to get into a very not even the worst team in the conference versus a Vipers team that, oof, they are scary. Michael, what do you think?
I think that this game comes down to, honestly, how good whoever Feed is playing with, how good they're backing him up that series. Feed is a really good player. He's a really good ones player, but I think it's just gonna come down to who's that second man behind him. But they're so scary. I gotta give it to them. I gotta give it to the Vipers. I feel like they're gonna be in the championship.
Very nice. Yeah, I have to agree. Actually, sorry, you said Vipers. No, I don't have to agree. I'm going the other way. I'm going to go with the Gators. And the Gators. The reason I'm saying this is because of exactly what Hawkish said earlier. Right. You have to consider that the Gators coming out of the regular season are on a 4-series winning streak. Right. They're looking super good in their conference. And the Vipers are actually on a 2-series losing streak. They lost the last 2 games of their regular season. I think the Gators have the momentum. I think the Gators are coming in with a point to prove after their starts of the season, and I think they take this, maybe even in 5 games. That's my call. I think Gators to win this one out. Hawkish.
So this is tough because I think the Vipers are the better team. I'll start off with that. I do think the Vipers are the better team. However, my boys are on the Gators. Muffin Mateo and Stoobs. Those are my boys. I know them from other stuff. We went to the same college. I know how good they can be. It's tough.
He's torn.
I'm very torn on this one.
Got to make a call.
Look, one of the Gators teams has to be good. The other 3
Robot, you hear that? You hear that, Robot? Kick him
one
out
of
the call.
It just got real hot in here. Jeez.
Woo! I think I hear somebody yelling.
Look, Origin, oof. Expert, oof. Elite, they FF that second half of the season. So I'm gonna go with the Gators on this one. I think they Steve's he's a defending expert league champion from last season. He moved up. I think that he stars out in this one. 7-game series once again, but I think the Gators take it.
Please don't turn off our stream robot. We love you here.
Ryan, if you want to take over, sorry, my headset died. Give me a second.
Yeah, no problem. Moving on to our final little segment of the show, we're going to look at the Elite Championship games. Let's see who's playing in this one. First up, we have the Owls taking on the Huskies. The Owls went 6-4 in the regular season. The Huskies went 9-1. And it has to be said that the only game that the Huskies lost all season was to the unbeaten Eagles, who we will talk about in a minute. Michael, what do you think about this one?
I'm gonna be honest. I know one person on the team, and his name's Tater, and he's really good. So I'm gonna have to go with the Huskies. They seem really dominant. I mean, the only team they lost to is the top team. You know what I mean? So I got to go with the Huskies.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's super, super difficult to argue against that. I mean, the Huskies have looked so good in their conference all season. Everyone lost to the Eagles, including them. So there's no shame in that at all. Winning all of the rest of their games, they even swept the Owls in the regular season when they met in Week 8. So to me, this one seems relatively cut and dry. I think the Huskies are going to take it. Hawkish, we back?
Yeah, we back. Sorry, I had
Okay.
a technical issue. Yeah, I caught that last bit. I'm sorry, it's the Huskies.
Yeah.
They're the only team to take games from the Eagles who are undefeated. Let's keep that in mind.
Wow.
There's no other team outside of the Eagles that can match up with the Huskies. And I've heard there's a rumor that the top lineup for the Huskies that hasn't played all season might be appearing in the playoffs.
No way.
Yeah, they might be getting Evil back. So Evil and Tater, if they're able to get that lineup together, that's scary.
Yeah. No,
That is the only lineup that I think can stand to the Eagles. So that is a very interesting. It'll be very interesting to see what happens. Yes, Street, I see you in the chat. That was told that the plan was for Evil to return for just the playoffs. So we'll see. We'll see. That's gonna be a tough one.
Bold strategy. Let's see if it pays off. But the other game in Elite, the one looking at the top of your bracket, is that big game, the undefeated Eagles taking on the 5-5 Monkeys. Michael, do I need to ask?
I don't think you need to ask any of us. I mean, you already know what every single person in this call is gonna pick right now. They're just such a dominant team, man. It's just like, how are you gonna? Yeah, you know my answer. It's the Eagles.
Yeah, they're absolutely at the top of their game right now. Hawkish, I assume there is no wavering from you.
Yeah. So again, I know the Eagles. I went to college with these guys. They're my boys, CVK and Sky. They're both 2100s. There's no chance. I'm sorry. I don't. Not even if Chris peaked like he's never peaked before, and on I forget who his teammate is this season. If Drew plays out of his mind, I just don't see it. I can't.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's going to be a sweep, probably, but even peaking, I still don't think they win. So, yeah, I think it's the Eagles. Definitely, it'll be an Eagles Huskies finals matchup, and if Evo comes back, oof, that is gonna be, I think, the matchup of the playoffs in general, no matter the league. That is the one that everyone's gonna want to tune in to watch.
I would hope so. I think it's going to be an incredible game. But the only redeeming factor for the Monkeys in this game is in the regular season. Obviously, the Eagles met the Monkeys in Week 8, I think it was. And actually, the Monkeys took them all 5 games. They did take games off them.
Oh, yeah.
They won the first game.
Forgot about that.
And also, all games except for one in that series were decided by 1 goal.
Yeah.
I'm not gonna sit here and say that I'm gonna pick the Monkeys for this game because I think I'd be crazy.
He's like, let me give you this caveat real quick.
I'm
Like, look,
not
I'm gonna
building
hedge
up
my
to that.
bets real quick.
But what I am gonna say is I don't think it's out of the realm of possibility for the Monkeys to have a performance like they did in that game and surprise the Eagles in a best of 7. It's
Yeah.
not out of the realm of possibility. It's not what I'm gonna go for. I'm not crazy, but it's just something to keep in mind for this game to add the intrigue because I genuinely think it could be a better game than people are billing it as.
I see where you're looking, or where you're coming from. Personally, I think they would have a better chance in a 5-game series over a 7-game because they could surprise the Eagles in 3 quick games.
Mhm.
I just don't see the Eagles losing in a 7-game series. I just can't.
More
It's gonna be.
chances to get tilted in a best of 7. More
I
chances.
think the biggest factor for the Eagles, it's gonna come down, or to the Monkeys, I should say, it's whether or not Chris's internet works out. That has been his biggest Achilles heel all season. It's his internet. If it's working, they have a solid chance. But on that note, we do have to wrap this up. We're a little bit over 7:00. It's been a great night with you, Rhino and Michael. We do have a matchup tonight at 9:30. It's going to be the first Origin matchup of the semifinals. I believe it's Coyotes and Monkeys. I think that's the one. Correct me if I'm wrong.
I
But
believe you're right.
yeah, that's going to be the matchup tonight. So tune back in at 9:30. We'll be back live. I believe Rhino's going to be taking that one.
I will be back.
We personally will be back next week on Wednesday at 6 p.m. That's going to be our weekly time. Tune in. We're going to upload the videos to YouTube if you happen to miss it, but we'll be back next week. And it's been great. It's me, Hawkish, signing off with Rhinoboy, and I'm Michael.
Salute.